Hi there, I'm Brian Watkins of the SE Optimist, and I'm making this video today both for people in the industry trying to brush up on their SEO as well as for my clients as something that I can share with them. And what I want to outline most in this video is, at a broad level, things that go into the keyword research that I do and the selection of all the keywords I might come upon in my research. What criteria goes into the ones that I say these are what we're going to focus on first, and how do I kind of separate out short-term, long-term goals, and how does that play into the content that we create around that? One of the most important things that you have to bear in mind with any list of keywords that you're planning to try to rank better for is understanding the intent. Are they informational searches where somebody is just trying to ask a question? Are they kind of commercial where they're looking for different brands or models or types of a solution that they already know they need? Or are they highly buying motivated, like they already basically know what they want to buy and now it's just a question of who? Such as, for instance, if you already totally knew you wanted to do SEO and you wanted to hire somebody, and if you were on my website, at that point, my only real goal is to convince you that I'm the one for the job, not that you need to do SEO. Having that clear in mind when you're making content matters for sifting through the keywords that you're going to create. And I think a trap that a lot of people fall into, whether they're doing SEO for themselves or if they hire someone to do their SEO, but maybe that person is less experienced at doing SEO, things that often lead to an SEO campaign or just a general set of efforts not achieving the goals that everyone was hoping for, often will come down to something like you were picking goals that were way too ambitious in the beginning and throwing everything you had at that, and then when you didn't really see the needle moving, felt like, oh, well, nothing we're doing matters. I'll give you a good example to illustrate this. And it came off of an account I did work on a few years back. It was for a personal injury law firm in New York City. And obviously they knew going into SEO, we want to rank for a personal injury attorney in the Bronx or, in New York City. But that was not anywhere close to our initial goals that we were targeting, because that is an insanely competitive keyword. Not simply in their case because New York City is a huge area with a lot of very strong competition, but simply because every single one of your competitors obviously wants to target that keyword. And from the Google standpoint, how it is making decisions based on who gets to rank for that very much comes down to Google's sense of which law firms are the true authority for personal injury, and you can't fake that. And if you can, not for long. And so I often think that not just targeting other types of keywords, in our case we targeted things like scaffolding injuries, construction site injuries, and we talked at length about different types of injuries and what things play into what is likely to be a successful lawsuit, what types of scenarios unfortunately would kind of discourage or disqualify one from having a good shot at seeking a good outcome for that kind of thing. By discussing the content at that level, we not only could target a whole bunch of keywords that were informationally driven, people just kind of wondering, hey, I know someone who was hurt in this type of accident. Let me hear from an attorney in a loose way. How does all this work? What does a personal injury case look like, etc.? Not just creating that kind of content allowed us to answer those questions, and now we have that kind of person on our site, but that's also consecutively a demonstration of expertise. There's a real pull that a lot of people feel to, I want to go after the buying motivated keywords. Like if I'm a car dealership, I want to rank for used cars in my city. Yeah, but like I said, not only is it really competitive and it's difficult, but even if you could win at ranking for that keyword, and let's say you did, you'd probably get business off of that. But if you at that point said, all right, we're winning, we're done, that's not really doing SEO at its fullest. You're really limiting yourself on the kind of traffic that you could get, because not everybody that's thinking in that example about buying a car is only going to type used cars. Everybody makes the mistake of thinking the buying intent keywords are where the money is and they want to focus all their effort there. But actually, if you're clever, Despite what most people would read about sales funnels, and it would lead people to believe that it's like a big multi-step process where the buying cycle could be weeks long. In a lot of industries and a lot of services and products, especially if you're clever in the way that you're making the content, you can actually sometimes take someone through the entire buying funnel in one piece of content, or maybe a couple that are on your site. Such as, they might begin with a question, and if you actually are providing an answer that is legitimately more thoughtful than most other sites that are coming up in the search alongside yours, and you're really demonstrating a real sense of expertise and that you really get where they're coming from, they might be so impressed by that the flow of the content you're creating, by the end of it, you could make recommendations to them about what their next steps ought to be, and they might want to call you from that piece of content because you've established enough trust and rapport there to do it. And if not, that content might be able to pull them to another page on your site that is a little more sales heavy, and now that you already have some rapport built up with them and they trust you a little bit because of how good your answer was, that next page they look at will be a heck of a lot more compelling, and you might get a phone call just from that piece of content. And so I always urge people, never think that we're just wasting our time answering questions or creating just generalized content that shows thought leadership. We're not doing it simply to please the algorithm on Google, although that's part of it. But each one of these potentially is a sales piece, and we need to treat it with that degree of importance. Building backlinks to your site definitely helps. It's sort of like a vote of confidence. You can think of it like any person that you're going to be introduced to in a real life sense. If 5 people that you trust have talked up this person, you're a lot more excited to meet this person than if it's a cold meeting where you don't know anything about them and it's sort of a blind date, if you will. Imagine you're meeting me, for instance. Even if 5 people that you knew all told you, Brian is a great guy, you're going to love meeting him, that helps, but what if you, out of curiosity prior to our meeting, said, let me just look him up and try to find his website and stuff, and what if I didn't even have a website? Now you're sort of like, well, I know people say Brian is a nice guy, but it gives me some pause that there's like 0 about him online to know, like how legitimate is he? I use that analogy to suggest that if you were to only lean on getting backlinks for SEO, and not crafting this degree, this breadth of good content on your site, it kind of presents as the same thing to Google. A lot of people are giving this business a vote of confidence, but there's not actually much on the site that proves that they deserve all of this trust and authority that people are suggesting. And so there has to be a balance of it. Yes, focusing entirely on content and never getting any links will help you rank to a certain point, but if you're in a really competitive industry, sometimes without those links, it's hard to get past a certain plateau of like, we've moved up to rank, say, number 5, and we cannot get past rank 5 until we get more links and things. Sometimes that ends up being the case. But I say all this to say the reverse is true, where if you've just gotten a ton of links, but your site really doesn't have much meaningful content, or the content it does have is samey and kind of superficial, the links won't have the impact that they should. And so just as often as I will start working with someone and their site has very few pages and no blog posts, and that's part of the issue, it also can be the case where I start working with someone who says, I've been blogging for 3 years, look at all these blog posts, but they haven't helped me. And when I look at the blog posts, part of what we are missing is you didn't really blog with a focused intent that was looking at things that you actually wanted to rank for. You're just sort of weighing in on general industry things, or there wasn't enough thoughtfulness put into these posts. You presented a question people are asking and gave a very superficial answer to it that, if we're honest, is pretty much the same thing that 50 other websites like yours have also said in basically the same way. How should Google make the determination then that your website is better than theirs? Now we're just relying purely too much on the general clout the website has and links and social signals. Often those aren't strong enough to overcome this very samey content. And so I often urge people there, I know there's a temptation to say, I'm not going to give away the house in a blog post. I'm not going to tell them all of my secret sauce because then they would never call me. People often think that, but I'll be straight with you. they're often wrong when they think that, because the reality is you have to demonstrate some kind of actual knowledge based on something tangible, and that has to come across for you to seem different than so much of the other competition that's immediately around you. It won't make people think they don't need you. That will be the thing that makes them realize they need you. And it's also the kind of content that is the kind of thing that will get more links from other sites. People will reference you. And it's the kind of content that makes Google rank you as the strongest answer. You have to legitimately, in many cases, be the best answer to get Google to agree that you're the best answer and then rank at the top. And so there's a high degree of thoughtfulness that has to go into all of that, which is the reason why it might seem trite, even in this day and age, to still be recommending blogging to companies when that's been part of the SEO solution for over a decade. It's the reason it's still something people recommend, because you can't fake expertise. You have to literally showcase it. And a blog allows you to do that better than just, I have 3 really well dialed in service pages. Good as they might be, 3 pages on your site is not enough. Not anymore. Not with how anal Google has become of really trying to ascertain who are real thought leaders in any given area. It just doesn't give you enough ammunition to work with otherwise. So a lot of the time when I'm starting the campaign, I'll look at different words and I'll be strategic based on what I know. Hey, these pie-in-the-sky keywords are probably going to take us more than 6 months to realistically rank for, so they're not going to be a target I want us to pay a lot of attention to right now. Because if we did, like I said earlier in this video, we would make the mistake that a lot of people make, which is we chase something that's too hard, we try it for a couple of months, we're not getting where we want to go, and we say, shucks, this is a waste of time. The reality is that was a 6 to 12 month goal. Let's not focus on it right now. Let's pick keywords that are A, easier to rank for, and B, if we ranked for them, it would actually help us rank for other keywords. And that's often the case of, say I was a website that I wanted to rank for home theater systems. Well, if I also had a lot of great content about things like how to choose a subwoofer for your home and where to place it in your room, what kind of things play into how you would decide where to put it in your room to make it sound the best, how you're picking speakers, how you should be pairing different systems, how you can tune your system, all kinds of that sort of content not only is useful and gets me a lot of traffic that could be motivated to come to my store, but it's having that kind of content that actually allows me to rank more easily for the more sales-motivated keywords, because now to Google and everyone else, I am a legitimate thought leader in the home theater space, and I have proven it. And now when it's a buying intent keyword, Google is willing to show me at the top over somebody who has done none of that. There's more to it than simply that, but that's a big part of what goes into the strategy that I pick. And so I'm often thinking when I'm looking at a list of words in terms of what are 30 to 90 day keywords that we should focus on that would be a little quicker moving, maybe give us some bang for the buck early on. If we're lucky, we could score some traffic fairly quickly with some of that, even if it doesn't drive a ton of sales. And in SEO, because of how momentum-based everything tends to go, a good strategy that I have found that works for me is just try to engineer your overall content plan in a way that everything you're making can stand on its own, but also plays into the bigger picture of what you're creating. How does today's blog post complement the last 2 that we just wrote? And is there a way it can be a good setup for the next post we're going to publish in 2 weeks? And then everything we're doing this month, how does that actually set us up really nicely for everything we're going to do next month, so that there's a very logical flow to it? And by the time we're 6 months in, some of those really difficult keywords that we stood no chance of 6 months ago, now we actually have amassed enough momentum, we can probably start ranking for some of those and start attracting the links that we're going to need to truly be competitive in this space and stay there is the other important part. Sometimes you get lucky and you do stuff that pops you up into the top 5, but then a month or 2 later, you fall back out of it. It's like Google temporarily thought you were a great answer, but then when it vetted things a little harder, it was like, well, maybe not. to stay there requires all that other stuff that really requires the strategy to amass. So I hope that helps to clarify things. I don't want to make an overly long video, but that's sort of the general rationale that I would use as I start working with someone. If you have questions, put them below and I'll do my best to answer. If you are a client watching this, we can talk about this in our next meeting. And otherwise, everyone, I'll catch you in the next video.